Hi, I'm Jacob Hornberger, Libertarian candidate for president. I'm still on my drive back to Virginia from the winter party there in New Jersey, the freeze-out party. And I've already given a commentary on what happened that night, but I've been thinking as I'm driving along here about this latest Wall Street Journal poll. And that's what I wanted to talk to you all about, because it really goes to the heart of what's going on in this presidential race, and both electorally, from a practical standpoint, politically speaking, but it also goes to the heart of our philosophy and our messaging in this party. So I wanted to just kind of share with you my thoughts on this poll in the larger context of this presidential race. So the Wall Street Journal came out with a brand new poll a couple of days ago in the presidential race, where they actually list the Libertarian Party. So when they call people up or contact them and say, who are you going to vote for in 2024, the Libertarian Party candidate is part of the mix here. And so the poll results were that 1% of the respondents said that they would vote Libertarian in the 2024 presidential race. Now, to put it another way, 99% of the respondents said, we are not going to vote Libertarian. That's a large rejection rate, 99%. That rejection rate matches a similar poll that the Wall Street Journal did 3 months ago in September, where again they actually asked people specifically about the Libertarian Party presidential candidate. And the results of that poll of 3 months ago matched the poll that they just came out with a couple of days ago. Again, 99% of the respondents said, we're not voting Libertarian. That result of that poll of 3 months ago matched essentially what our presidential candidate got 3 years ago, where 99%, or to be exact, 98.9% of the electorate said, we're not voting for your presidential candidate. That's a large rejection rate. In a congressional race in the 20th Congressional District of Florida just a year ago, one of the competitors, one of my opponents in this race, Mike Termott, ran for Congress as an LP member with the same message that he's running for today, for the presidential nomination. Same message. Nothing's changed. He took that message to the electorate in the 20th Congressional District in Florida. He got into the debates. He got his message out. And at the end of the race, over 99% said, we're not voting for your message. Same message that he wants to run in the presidential campaign on. A year ago, another competitor for the LP presidential nomination this time around, Chase Oliver, took his message to the voters of Georgia in a statewide Senate race, U.S. Senate. He got more publicity than I think any Libertarian presidential or any Libertarian candidate in history, much more than our presidential candidate got in 2024. I would say this is like many millions of dollars of free advertising for his message. And he got into the debate against an incumbent U.S. Senator, Raphael Warnock, where he was able to get his message to every voter in Georgia, because every voter in Georgia was transfixed on this race. And at the end of that election, 98% of the voters said, we are not going to vote for your message. And this matched a race where Chase took the same message he took in that race, the same message he's using now in the presidential race. He ran for Congress for U.S. House a year before that. I think it was a special election. And once again, 98% said, we're not voting for your message, which indicates that all those millions of dollars in free advertising didn't do any good at all, because the rejection rate stayed the same. So what do we have now? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points of reference. We've got the Wall Street Journal poll a couple of days ago. We've got the Wall Street Journal poll of 3 months ago. We've got the presidential race excuse me, a car was trying to get back into the highway after it had gotten off. You've got the presidential race 3 years ago. You've got the Mike Tremont's race in Congress. And you've got Chase Oliver's race for U.S. Senate. Well, along with his congressional race, it's actually 6 points of reference. Where voters are saying in a tsunami-sized 98 to 99% rejection rate, we don't like the message that your party's putting out. Now, what does it take for LP members to finally realize that this is a bad message we're putting out? I'm with the 99%. I'm with the 98%. They're right to reject this message. I'm with them. I vote Libertarian, but I reject this message as completely as they do. It's just a bad message for a party that prides itself on liberty and free markets and limited government. It's a bad message. Now, is it a popular message in the Republican Party? Absolutely. They love reform in Republican life. Social Security reform, Medicare reform, healthcare reform, drug war reform, military reform, monetary reform, immigration reform, reform of this status quo system that we have. Okay, they love reform. Small government, that's another thing Republicans love. Lower taxes, reduce spending. I mean, these are all mantras that are very popular in the Republican Party. And the idea has always been for the last 20 to 25 years in the Libertarian Party that we can take what's popular in the Republican Party, transfer it over here to our presidential campaigns, our congressional campaigns, and they will be popular over here. But it's always been a fallacious strategy. Because when people are given a choice between a Republican and a reform-oriented advocate of reform in the welfare, warfare state way of life that's in the Republican Party versus a Libertarian Party candidate that's advocating essentially the same thing, they're always going to go with the real Republican. Why would they go for the Libertarian that's advocating the same thing? I mean, especially when the Libertarian doesn't have a chance to win. They might as well go with what they feel they can win, which is a Republican. So, obviously, there's people in this party that are very deeply committed to this message of reform in Republican life. Okay? It's deeply ingrained in the party. It's been here for 20, 25 years. People tell me, Jacob, you can't win a nomination against this sentiment. The sentiment is dominant in this party. And you know, I have no doubts. I mean, I'm not naive. I know the difficult nature of my task. I'm trying to shift an entire party, or at least 50% plus one, toward the principles on which this party was founded. That's not an easy task. And I'm not unmindful of that. I mean, like I said, I out of the 6 candidates in this race, I'm sure there'll be more popping in later on. But I'm at the bottom of the heap. I have no doubts of the difficult nature of what I'm asking this party to do, which is abandon this bad message and go with a message of pure libertarian principles. That's my quest here, to restore the brand of principled libertarianism on which this party was founded and run a presidential campaign that is based totally, completely, 100% on true, pure, genuine libertarian principles. Open borders, abolish Social Security, Medicare, and all other socialist programs. Separate school and state entirely. No vouchers or other socialist reform plans that violate the libertarian non-aggression principle. Abolish Medicare, Medicaid. Have a total free market healthcare system. Okay? Because what I'm saying is that if we're going to change directions, if we're going to break out of this 1%, we need to change directions completely, dramatically. Because there's just no doubt that if we continue with this same message of reform in Republican life, we're going to get the 1%. I mean, we already know the results of the presidential election in 2024. Not insofar as Republicans and Democrats, but for our candidate, we already know the results. That's what the Wall Street Journal polls are already telling us. And if things haven't changed over the last 3 years and over the last 3 months, they're not going to change over the next 11 months. There's no reason for them to change unless we change directions in this party dramatically. Because these polls are factoring in that we're going to run the same kind of standard reform-oriented Republican-like candidate that we've run for the last 20, 25 years. And I mean, we're talking about things like, keeping immigration socialism and an immigration police state, thinking that we're going to reform the system better than Republicans. We're talking about replacing the income tax with a 18 to 23% sales tax that's going to fall disproportionately on the poor, or health savings accounts but keep Medicare and Medicaid intact as a way to save and reform the healthcare system, a Social Security privatization, which is gradually going to reduce the Social Security payments over the next 20 or 30, 50 years, which of course means a monumental amount in unfunded liabilities, not to mention the fact that it's a socialist program and you can't ever be free under socialism. School vouchers or other socialist vehicles to reform public schools. Voters are telling us we will not vote for that kind of message. They're telling us we will not vote for that kind of message. You may hear the rain. It's a real bad rainstorm here. That if we're going to change directions, we have to change directions completely. Now, there's clearly people in the party that are deeply wedded to reform and Republican life. They'll never let go. I mean, I understand that. You're not going to convert these people to genuine libertarian principles. Some of them loathe genuine libertarian principles. I absolutely loathe them, which I find fascinating. Why would you join a party if you loathe the core principles of the party? I mean, why not join a party that shares your principles? So they're not going to change. Like the advocates, some of the advocates of immigration controls, they are deeply committed. They say we'll never change, and they will never change. And the same with other kind of reform-oriented vehicles. But my hunch is that there's a large number of libertarians that would like some electoral success. I mean, we are a political party. We're not a debating party. We'd like to get people elected to public office, but it has to be elected on the right grounds. If all you do is elect somebody, let's say to Congress, that's reform and Republican-like, then it's just essentially another Republican, because it's not liberty. You're never going to fly higher in office, as somebody once said, than you flew getting there. And so the ideal is to win electoral office based on liberty, not on reforming the serfdom under which we're living. But again, I think there's a large number of people in the party that would like electoral success. But there's a price to be paid for that, and that's to give up this message of reform and Republican life, and to embrace our genuine libertarian principles, the principles I'm enunciating in this race. And I don't think that's a high price to pay. But that's the price, to abandon reform and Republican life and run a campaign of pure, genuine libertarian principles. Now, how would that achieve electoral success? Because there's a large number of people out there that are our voters. They may not be members of the Libertarian Party, but there are voters that will vote for open borders, that will vote for the eradication of socialism, that will vote for the dismantling of the deep state. But they will not vote for reform or Republican life. That's not what they're into. A lot of these people are part of the 50% who don't vote. Now, that's counterintuitive. I understand. You say, well, Jacob, if they don't vote, why would they vote for us? Because they would vote for what they like, which is our principles. But they're not going to take the time to go out and vote for somebody that's advocating reform and Republican life. They're not interested in that. So in order to achieve electoral success, this breakout that I'm talking about, of a big breakout, 10 to 15%, where all of a sudden people have to start paying notice, and where you're getting closer to pressuring these people into allowing the Libertarian Party candidate to get into the debate, you've got to be at that 10 or 15% category. You're not going to get anywhere staying at 1%. And those voters are out there. Okay? There's no doubt in my mind. There's a big block of voters that will vote for our
follow signs for I-495
so that's what
West,
I'm saying,
Silver Spring.
is that the voters are talking to us. They're telling us, they're sending us a message. We don't like what you guys are putting out. We don't like what you're putting out. But if we change directions dramatically, completely, and we restore the genuine principles of this party, and we run a presidential campaign that is based totally, 100%, completely on true, genuine libertarian principles, we will achieve that breakout.
Continue on
Big breakout, the 10 to
I-495 west for
15%.
18
But more
miles.
important, that's the way we lead America to liberty. If we don't do this, there is virtually no doubt we stay at the 1%. The next presidential campaign, we already know that. We got 5 or 6 points of reference that are telling us that. But most important, we don't lead America anywhere except to more reformed, warmed over serfdom. I'm Jacob Hornberger, Libertarian candidate for president. Thanks for tuning in. My campaign website is jacobforliberty.com.